Good morning and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Amidst global shifts, war, and arising challenges, creativity and culture must find new ways to adapt, communicate, and engage. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to a new series from America House Kiev, Creative Resilience in a Time of War. This is a new series that will bring together creatives from Ukraine and from the United States to explore the role and purpose of creative work in a new world that brings new challenges. Our first session today is dedicated to the topic of wartime storytelling, and we have gathered a very impressive guest list for you today, and very incredible speakers from two countries. I would like to introduce you to our roster of speakers for tonight. We will speak first with Yaroslav Turbil, and he is the co-founder of Brand Ukraine and the head of Ukraine.ua, about his mission to make Ukraine a love mark for people worldwide and how their organization have been utilizing storytelling to bring the stories of Ukrainians to a new world and hear them for everyone today. We will also chat with Danielle Hawley, Global Executive Creative at Uber, about the thinking behind Uber's campaign, Keep Ukraine Moving, and why she chose to work with the creative Ukrainian agency Banda for the effort. Rick Serdiuk and also Alesia Bondar from Banda are also with us here today, and they will share their perspective and also the backstage of fulfilling their very compelling and very needed creative work from Ukraine today. And also, I would first, before we go on, I would like to introduce you to our program co-organizers, two incredible individuals, American creatives and strategists, who were the driving force behind this program. And I'd like to first introduce Izzy Chan and Kirsten Hazard and pass the mic to Izzy. Oh, Izzy, we can't hear you though. Yeah, experiencing some issues. I'm sorry, technical issues. As Izzy starts that out, Kirsten, perhaps you might like to say a few words first.
Yes, hello. I'm a San Francisco-based senior brand strategist, and organizing this project, I'm ceaselessly inspired by the resilience of all of Ukraine, but it has been so empowering to me to witness how the power of creativity can be used not just to defend the country, but keep the world spirit and support alive. Stories are so powerful, and thank you to everyone for joining.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect, Izzy. Go ahead.
All right. Hi, I'm Izzy. I'm a strategist by trade, like Kirsten. I had the honor of working with America House Kiev a number of years ago, where I was able to teach strategy and storytelling around different parts of Ukraine. So to be able to collaborate again today is a great honor. I'm going to keep this short because I can't wait to hear from the speakers. It's so easy in the world today to look around and feel overwhelmed and perhaps a little despondent. What I hope all of you will get from the speakers today is get a sense and find inspiration for resilience, that there is still so much to be hopeful for. And for so many of us who are in the world of in the world of creativity and storytelling, this is such an important time for us to use our talents to make a meaningful difference in the world today. And I hope you're going to find inspiration from all these different speakers to do that. And with that, I will pass it on to Lucy to kickstart this conversation.
Thank you so much, Izzy, and thank you all to all of our speakers for joining us today. We are coming to you from all over the world, from Kiev, from California, from the East Coast, from Germany. So this is a true coming together of creative spirit that America House always wants to support. We will start out our event today with a short introduction and presentation from Yaroslav Turbil about his work. Yaroslav, please. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, dear colleagues. It's a great pleasure to be here today and to speak, and thanks everyone for joining us online and watching this stream. So I'll begin with a short presentation about the organization, what we do, and then move to some practical cases, maybe some experience exchange. So as far as I understand, the presentation is already on the screen. So I'll start speaking. Thank you. So I will tell about how we Ukrainians are telling stories like by Ukrainians and stories of Ukrainians. The stories of freedom, the stories of bravery, the stories that are very true, the stories about resilient people in different formats, in various aspects, in various dimensions. Um, Before we start with the practical cases, just a couple of brief words about the organization that I represent. It's Brand Ukraine NGO, and our big mission is to help Ukraine become the love mark for the world. You probably know that love mark is a term for marketing, and it's about like building emotional connections between brands and customers slash clients slash audiences. And that's actually what we are trying to do in our work, to build emotional connections between Ukrainians and foreigners, like building bridges, building new partnership, encouraging those partnerships. My role is a co-founder of the organization, and I'm also a head of Ukraine.ua. Basically, Ukraine.ua is, as we call it, a digital ecosystem, the official digital voice of Ukraine. This is a joint project developed by the Brand Ukraine and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. So Ukraine.ua is basically 7 social media channels, official social media Ukraine, and 2 web platforms, Ukraine.ua and war.ukraine.ua. What we do, we communicate with the international audience, and our regular audience is over 2 million people, and we reach a lot more like every month. So to start with, maybe some of you or many of you are subscribed to Ukraine.ua Instagram. This is, I would say, one of our most successful platforms with over 1 million following. And this is how Ukraine.ua Instagram feed looked before the full-scale war. So our team, which I'm leading, was dedicated a lot to showcasing Ukraine and encouraging tourism. You know that Ukraine has a lot of beautiful places to see and visit, and that's what we did. We were focused on tourism and investment, and on these screenshots you may see that we were like very picky with the photos. We used high quality imagery. We were trying to stick to very like clear style and with color palettes for each season. But the February 24, the beginning of the full-scale invasion by Russia, actually changed everything for us. And just to getting back to the story, so you may see a lot of photos of nature, of architecture, but very few people here. And sometimes we were asked why there are so few people on the photos. When the war started, we understood and we changed our perspective a lot. And the key consequence and the key thought is that the war, the challenge we are going through right now as the country, as the nation, and everyone, like personally, as a Ukrainian, that the war is not faceless. And you might see here the new feed of Ukraine.ua Instagram, which differs a lot from what we had like 2 years ago. That's a lot of people, that's struggle, that's fight, that's resilience, that's lots of stories told by Ukrainians and told about Ukrainians, and all of them are true. So why it's important to tell stories? This is a screenshot from the section on war.ukraine.ua website, the platform we launched on the 7th day of the full-scale war to provide everyone with verified information about the full-scale invasion. And one of the sections is dedicated to stories about people, and that's different people. We call them defenders of freedom. That's not only heroes on the front line, but it's a lot of them. It's also volunteers, it's people of different ages, it's people of different origins, different cultures, but all of them are united with the same goal because they are fighting for peace, they are fighting for freedom. In their fight, they are protecting the values which are shared by many nations and like dozens of millions of people around the world. And here you can see a Ukrainian defender who is actually a kickboxing champion. Then a girl from Zaporizhia who spent 5 times under the rubble in Zaporizhia when the city was shelled by Russian military. Then a defender with African origin who joined the armed forces of Ukraine and says, I'm Ukrainian, this is my country. And then a little schoolgirl who donated like thousands of dollars to support Ukrainian military. And why this is important and what is the connection between all these stories is the 3 key points that we defined. The first one is that we all are humans. The second one is like, look, I'm just like you. And this is the message that we are conveying to the international audiences with these stories. And the third one, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Because many challenges that we face, we know that for some people across the globe, they might be not so familiar, but some of them they do. And many people can recognize themselves in these situations. And many people have gone through the challenges of life. The narrative is always the key. And we put a lot of effort in our work to keep this sincere tone of voice when we tell the stories. This screenshot is a stories made by our team. I remember it was like 3 at night, and we were in a basement because it was a air raid alert. But the message is very like sincere and clear because it speaks from hearts. So we never give up. We defend human lives. We're here for you because we in Ukraine are defending. Here is the front line between the good and the evil. Here is the front line between freedom and not freedom. And that is why it's always very important to keep this tone of voice very honest, very human, and very sincere. And that's why we do this. Then another important insight from our work is the importance of giving the floor to people like you and like me, like ordinary people, because everyone has its own experience. Everyone has its own story to tell. To be honest, before the full-scale invasion, we rarely communicated or somehow encouraged Ukrainians to engage with our content on Instagram or on other social media platforms because we were 100% focused on communicating to international audience in English. But then we understood, and because like a lot of new content, new stories coming from regular people appeared, we started to somehow interact with Ukrainians too. And this is one of the examples that we enjoy a lot. This is a series of life lessons from Ukrainians. So we ask Ukrainians to share their life lessons. Like the one here is like how they changed personally through the month of war. Another was how they keep like surviving because despite blackouts. And this is something that Ukrainians are unique at, and this is something that Ukrainians are eager to share with the world. And this is something that people might find useful or inspiring, like in these comments. These are just 3 comments, but I can say 100% sure that we have hundreds comments like this. And the one I love the most maybe that thank you for reminding me who I really am. So stories told by Ukrainians, the stories told about Ukraine during this wartime inspired a lot of nations across the globe, inspired a lot of people who revisited their values, who revisited who no longer take for granted thing just because they used to do it, but seeing this fight, seeing the resilience of Ukrainians, seeing the bravery that a lot of people in Ukraine possess, they understand that freedom and other values are worth fighting for. Another important insight, and again, I'm getting back in my mind to the slides with how our Instagram feed looked before. So every picture is perfect, like every color palette is perfect and dedicated to special season. But then we understood that the most valuable is the story, and the most valuable is the human or humans in the story. So the story doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be true. And this is the example from our TikTok account, a video. Maybe you've seen it too, because if this one got like over 50 million views, so it was everywhere. It's the story where a Ukrainian defender, after the liberation of villages in the Kherson region, met his grandmother. And when she saw her grandson, she just fell to her knees. And this is a very touching moment. So the video has bad quality, but the story is very pure, is very emotional, is very true. And that's the most important thing. When you tell the stories, the format can be literally any. It can be illustrated. The first one on the screenshot is our collaboration with with a Hollywood star with Ukrainian heart and soul, Vera Farmiga, who told the story of a couple which survived the shelling of a shopping mall in Kremenchuk, and the story is illustrated. Another one is an explainer, which I already mentioned, the example how we share Ukrainian experience. And the third one is how we try to use artificial intelligence. So the format can be any. Besides the storyteller can be everyone. The first is an example of a man from Japan, Fuminori, who is 75 years old. He sold everyone in his hometown and moved. I don't say like came, but moved permanently to Kharkiv, the city in the northeast of Ukraine, which is shelled like constantly, literally every day. But she moved to Ukraine and say, I'll live here forever just to help Ukraine, to support them. And the second one is Ukrainian animal star, Stepan the cat, who is also a survivor of war, who has seen a lot, been a refugee, and then come back to Ukraine. So storyteller can be everyone. And I remember this formulation from communication theory at the university, that even a medium can be a message. So basically, in this campaign that we developed together with the creative agency Bickerstaff, Free the Leopards, cloth or leopard patterns are the medium. Briefly about the background, you probably know about Rammstein format. You probably know that Ukraine crucially needs hard weapons to liberate its territory, to restore its territorial integrity. And among these weapons are Leopard tanks, which Ukraine asked many countries, and including Germany. But there were some delays in supplies of the tanks. So we decided to launch a flash mob on social media, which gone really viral, and we reached over 100 million people across the world in just 7 days. What was the message? The message was free the leopards, and we asked people to just put on leopard clothes, like revitalize old trends. And many people shared their personal stories, because those leopard clothes, those leopard prints, which are no longer like trendy, could or like made people remind good old days before the full-scale war, or even before the war, which lasted for 9 years. And many Ukrainian stars, many international celebrities joined the campaign just to share the message. So this is one of the examples of creativity that can that's like flourishes in Ukraine these days. And this is all about what we are fighting for. Telling the stories of Ukrainians, true stories, is important to help people understand the reasons behind the fight, our motivation behind the fights. We are like totally different people, as said, different ages, different origin, different jobs, occupations, but we are all have the common goal, the shared goal to bring victory to Ukraine, to bring victory to the free world, to bring peace and freedom back to Ukraine and the whole continent. And the stories, just to conclude, is a great way to convey the messages which are important for Ukrainians. So that was it. And thank you so much again for inviting me to join the panel. And thank you for this great opportunity. And I just encourage you to follow Brand Ukraine for more updates and follow Ukraine.ua on different social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, and LinkedIn, and our websites. So thank you so much, and Slava Ukraini.
Heroim Slava. Yaroslav, thank you so much. This was such a fascinating overview of the work that your organization has done over the last year, but even earlier, how your work has changed, how you use all of the latest trends and all of the toolkits, all of the tools in your toolbox, from content, from user-generated content to AI to participatory call to action campaigns, and it all comes together. And it was interesting for me when you were kind of going through these case studies, these examples of these stories. I know all of them. And I feel like I lived through all of them, just the immediacy of what has been happening for those of us in Ukraine, and how those stories, they don't feel separate from me or from the Ukrainian experience. It is so shared. And I see that the response that from the Ukrainian audience has been just as strong as the comments that you see from people from abroad. I mean, that was my impression. Is that close to your view?
Yeah, I totally agree that each story is resonating a lot just because we are Ukrainians. And I remember exactly the moment when I don't remember the reason why, but I just needed to scroll down our Instagram feed just 1 year back, and I just stopped like in tears immediately, because it's so difficult to live through again everything, because you remember every day, every moment, every story. You just see the photo and you remember exactly the context, why it appeared and who is this person. You don't remember the names, but you remember the consequences, the context. And that is why it's so amazing, because I read just one short passage of one comment that we receive, but we literally receive hundreds of such comments from support, and especially from Americans. So the United States is #1 following our social media channels. It's so touching that so many people support Ukraine, and they understand why. That's the most important, and they will support Ukraine until the end, until the victory.
Thank you so much, Yaroslav. A quick reminder for everyone who has joined us in our webinar, please add your questions to the Q&A, and we will get them to the end of the session, and we'll be able to answer any questions that you might have. And for those watching our stream, you can also add any comments, any thoughts, or share any remarks that you might have, and we will also share them with our speakers. And Danielle Hawley, I would like to move to our next guest, but Yaroslav, please stay on. We will have the conversation with all our speakers a bit later. Could you please share a little bit more about yourself with our audience, and about your Keep Ukraine Moving campaign in particular?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm Danielle Hawley, and I run the global creative team at Uber. The Keep Ukraine Moving campaign really started as action in Ukraine. We've heard Dara, our CEO, talk all about how we will be in Ukraine, helping in Ukraine for as long as it takes. And it started with, showing up. And rather than being a giant corporation saying, this is what you guys need, we're going to help in this way and that way, we listened and we found out what the true needs of the Ukrainian people were. And our mission is to reimagine the way that the world moves for the better. And that's what we essentially set out to do, was to say, we're a movement company. You guys are having a lot of incredible heartache because movement is a fundamental human right. And if we can help in that capacity, we're going to do that. We did a lot of things with high capacity vehicles where we actually transported monuments and saved precious Ukrainian art. We also allowed our technical platform to be handed to the World Food Group so that our API and our map and technical functionality was actually servicing the movement of things around the country. And then, I think we were faced with a lot of concern for our employees in Ukraine, but also the drivers. And the platform, of course, shut off when full war broke out. And I think the instinct is to continue to not operate in the country. And what we found was that there were Ukrainian drivers who really wanted and needed to earn, and also felt a calling and an opportunity to help. Perhaps they weren't on the front lines, but again, they believed their job was to move things and people. And we found some incredibly inspiring stories of Ukrainian Uber drivers who were literally making a lot more of what was typically just a ride. On February 24th, it became a lot more than a ride. And we wanted to support that and also tell the story as the United States particularly was about to hit a recession. We felt that the eyes of the world were turning away from Ukraine, and we wanted to be able to use storytelling to get people to continue to pay attention and to join us in that mission of being in the Ukraine for as long as it took.
Thank you so much, Danielle. We also have with us today Rick Serdiuk and Alesia Bondar from Banda agency who worked on this project with you. And I was hoping that you might be able to share kind of your perspective and your experience working on this campaign. Perhaps Rick, you would like to go first.
Yes, sure. Hello, everyone. So my name is Rick. I'm a Ukrainian living in LA, in the US. And when Uber came to us, I was thrilled. Like, wow, this is what we need right now. This is what Ukraine needs. And right on the first slide of their presentation, it was, we want to keep Ukraine in a spotlight, and we want to share the stories of Ukrainians. And this is very important right now because for Ukrainians, the war is happening on the battlefield and on the battleground. But for many millions of people, millions and millions of people in the world, the war is happening. This is actually the first war that is happening online in Twitter and TikTok. And, and apart from news media networks like CNN, BBC, and so on, people are forming their opinions about this war and about Ukrainians in online medias, and big brands should act, not just observe, like Uber did. And that's why they use storytelling, and they asked us to help with creative materials and asked to create this. And of course, we jumped in because this is just great. And I want to, to thank Uber and for this once more and again and again. Yeah.
Thank you.
Alesia, could you please?
Alesia, yeah.
Yeah, I just like to add that we had like 30 interviews with different drivers. We found like a lot of drivers with amazing stories. There have been men who spent 26 hours driving elderly couple to the border with Poland. There was a man who was driving with his dog and evacuating people. And there were so many stories about these amazing, ordinary, brave Ukrainian drivers. And we had a really beautiful chance to talk with them. And our heroes, 3 heroes we made a campaign about, Pasha, Oksana, and Dmitro. They are amazing, and we spent like 3 hours with each of them before the shooting time, and we talked with them a lot about their background, about their children, about their stories, why they do what they do. And this inspires me so much that we have so many amazing ordinary people who just made this huge decision that I want to help other ordinary Ukrainians. I want to go there. I want to risk my life, but I want to save someone. And this gives me goosebumps. And I think this is the power of storytelling, that we were able not only, to say something from the name of a brand, like sometimes brands do, but we gave these ordinary people a chance to say what they feel and to tell their stories.
Thank you, Alesia. Yaroslav, from Brand Ukraine, you spoke a little bit about how your storytelling, it shifted from these general, beautiful views of Ukraine to really human stories. And I see that the Uber campaign, it also focused very closely on these human stories. And these are not necessarily narratives or events, from the front line, which people are usually perhaps expecting during wartime coverage. So my question to you all, to all of our panelists today, why is it important to go beyond those headline news and really delve into the personal? And what were you, and what are you still trying to accomplish by focusing on them? Yaroslav, perhaps you would like to go first.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, basically, when I was telling that, like, our approach to communication and to choosing the topics and focusing more on human stories and people, that doesn't mean that we do not that we focus 100% on war. The attention that Ukraine received since the beginning of full-scale invasion in international media, on social media, and like literally everywhere is historically high. I'm not sure if you followed Google Trends, but they have this analytics where they give the score from 0 to 100 points to each search query on Google. And in February 2024, Ukraine, this keyword, Ukraine, got 100 points out of 100. That meant that Ukraine received historically high attention. And this is the opportunity that we also use in our work to tell about different dimensions of Ukraine. Because we have amazing nature, we are really creative nation. We are a tech nation, so we have a story. We have history of lots of startups, digital solutions, innovations, and so on that we are also eager to tell. So, like, we go for both frontline stories because each story of Ukrainian defender, whether it's a young person or an old person, whether it's a woman or a man, whether it is a professional military or a volunteer who joined just when the full-scale invasion began. It's also important to like give the floor to the creativity, to the voices of different people, to like good news from Ukraine. And that's what we also do in our work. As I said, it's a unique opportunity, and we want Ukraine to be associated with many things, because we understand that this association with war will remain, but we do not want war to be the only association with Ukraine and Ukrainians, because we are a lot more than this fight. And this is like, as I said, unique opportunity to tell the true stories, the true story.
Thank you so much. Danielle, would you like to comment and share a little bit?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with Yaroslav. I think that what was so important for us in telling these driver stories was that, again, we didn't We weren't marketers in an entirely other country sitting around a conference room table pretending that we understood the plight, but also the hope and the charisma and the quirkiness and all of the things that make up the Ukrainian people. And we knew that we needed a partner like Banda to guide that and to drive that forward and to show that these weren't just incredibly moving stories about a very, very difficult time in history. They were also incredible stories of human spirit and hope and community and safety and so many things that are about the human story. This was not a political thing. This was a human story. And I think that's at the heart of everything. Frontline imagery is so important. The stories that Yaroslav and the team have told are so incredibly moving and powerful. But to increase and open that aperture to show not just the front lines, but the spirit of the country at large was very much top of mind for the Banda team and the Uber team when we talked about the drivers.
Thank you, Danielle. And Rick and Alesia, for you, this approach, it feels almost documentarian rather than kind of a fictionalized storytelling that is so common in creative campaigns. Was this a direction that you knew early on that you were going to take? Rick, perhaps you can go first.
Yeah, I would. I want to add that about storytelling, the power of storytelling. So I do believe that we perceive the universe around us not through official facts, let's say, but through unofficial stories, small stories, on a personal level. So this is very important that big brands, they can help us with this, using their big brands equals big publicity. Yeah. So if I love some big brand, I would trust what it is saying. So, and yeah, about these stories of Ukrainian drivers, I want to tell a short story about the director, my friend of mine, Oleg Tomin. And it was such a dramatic background because he was the one who spent with his family, who spent almost 2 weeks on the occupied territory in the city of Irpin, close to Kiev. And he saw throughout his window, holding his hands of his 2 children, he saw Russian occupiers. He saw Russian tanks. And when they escaped by the miracle, he said to me that, I saw dead bodies of my neighbors and I closed the eyes of my kids just not to see this. So, and this was the director of our campaign. So we just let him do it. And, we have nothing to add just because personally, I am in the United States right now and Alesia is in Germany, but many of our crew who stayed in Ukraine and who are still in Ukraine and who did this. And we were doing these documentary stories. And when we were editing them in Kiev, the air siren was on, an alarm. And so we have to stop the process and back to the shelter, back to the editing room again and again.
I think that's the other thing that I really want the world to know is that just like our instinct as Uber was to shut down the platform and no longer operate because that's what we thought the drivers needed from us, and we were so wrong. The same is true for Ukrainian agencies. Rick, Alesia, the team, they want to work. They want to put their skills to be able to tell these stories, but also because their creativity and their own survival counts on us tapping them, not just to tell Ukrainian stories, but to do what they do as creative people. And I think so often the instinct is to show profound empathy by giving everyone a break. And there were many instances where we would have to reschedule meetings or push meetings out because these guys, the Banda team was, and Oleg and the production were in a war. And that's just, I think, it's so incredibly critical to understand that no matter what the obstacles, the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian agencies want to work. And it's up to big brands like ours to continue to give them that work so that they can thrive.
Thank you, Danielle. That actually leads me to my next question. We have seen incredible dedication and motivation from Ukrainian creatives across all sectors, but there is the question, even from those who are interested in potentially collaborating, is how do they do it? You know, it is a war zone. There are issues sometimes with electricity, with connection, and that is just the least of the problems that different people face. And this is a question also to Yaroslav and to Rick and to Alesia, is how have you evolved your workflow and what was it really like working in these conditions and managing to pull it off together? Perhaps Rick, you can go first and then Alesia.
Well, the most creative folks I know out there are Ukrainians, because we have to be creative and inventive. Because within the last decade, we've been through two big bands, let's say. So the first one was Maidan Revolution, and now this is the full-scale war. So we have to be creative, otherwise we wouldn't survive. So yeah, we adapt very quickly to this new reality. And of course, it was very hard, and it is still hard, because when I'm talking to my Kiev team, I can feel it, that they're trying to cheer me up. I'm trying to cheer them up, but they're doing the opposite, cheer me up. But I can feel that something has changed. Something has changed in the air, and in Ukraine. And but on the other hand, we are now, I guess it's like 2 times or 3 times more energy we put into the projects, because we want to act. We want to do this, and to do this right now, because this is like a medicine for us, like a medicine that cures stress. Because when you're into something, dive into something, you don't think about those things, scary things. So this is the way we do it right now.
Thank you, Rick. Alyssa, what was your experience like gathering the stories as a copywriter, working with everyone remotely?
I must say I enjoy remote work, but what I wanted to add is that, as I remember, Uber campaign was maybe the first one which I did in an actually good mood, because from the beginning of a big war, first I think 4 months for me were awful, and it was really hard to concentrate. I still kept working, and Banda team never stopped. We kept working from the first, not the first day, but we continued doing something, because we felt that it's our battlefield, because we are creatives. We should create and we should communicate with the world. But as I remember, Uber campaign actually gave me a lot of inspiration, and I felt like finally I can breathe again normally. And these stories of these drivers inspired me a lot, because when you listen to the story of an ordinary person who does such amazing things, this gives you strength to keep going. And Keep Ukraine Moving campaign kept moving Alesia. I think that that was my personal story, and that's how many our fellow creatives feel, because people really put heart in work now, and we this gives us strength to cope with all the stuff we are going through. That's my experience.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
So in Bondar, there are roughly 70 people right now, and since the war started, we created over 60 projects aiming to fight Russian propaganda, creative projects. So just imagine, we were a creative army working nonstop, supplying the how do you say it, these Snariady. Sorry for my
Creative missiles.
Creative
yes,
missiles.
supplying creative missiles to the army, you know, to fight, to help Ukraine win on creative battlefield as well. This is very important, and to fight Russian propaganda machine.
Winning hearts and minds. I understand that. Yeah. Yaroslav, how is it for you? You're based in Kiev, your team is in Kiev, and your work is incredibly fast paced, getting the latest news. How has your workflow evolved within the team and your personal one as well?
Well, it was really difficult, to be honest, but I guess as for every Ukrainian, it's almost the same. So everyone had the most difficult period of life this year and last year. But I would say that I liked what Rick mentioned about this adaptivity and about keep doing what you're doing, keep doing what you think is the best you can do, because this helps us to survive not only like physically but also mentally. Because the war, even if you're not like performing combat missions, the war being in this context and being at risk that a missile can like hit your apartment like any day, any time. That's a constant pressure. That's a constant stress that you need to go through every day when you wake up. And keep doing is the good motivation to do what you do. And like speaking about our team's experience, part of the team is based in Kiev and part of the team in other cities of Ukraine and part of the team is abroad. So it was sometimes difficult to sync, when everyone is in different places. And when you say like we work remotely, sometimes that means that you work from home, but sometimes it means you work from bathroom or from parking or from basement or from, I don't know, you name it. So to like keeping the work like regular way sometimes can be difficult, but when you understand, when you feel with all your heart and soul the mission and why you are doing it, and you understand the impacts and the importance of every even small effort, there are no like little things when you support someone, like both for Ukrainians and also for foreigners that support Ukraine. There are never no thing are little when you support someone, when you make a contribution and investment to the victory of the independent country, of the victory of the free nation. So understanding that like keeps this spirit all the time.
Thank you so much. A quick reminder to our audience that you can add your questions. We have 10 minutes left in our event, but it's still some time to answer some of your queries. Meanwhile, we've already received one question that I would love to ask to all of you. The comment is from Andrei. Ukrainians are very grateful for the work that you do, Yaroslav, Danielle, and the Banda team, Rick and Alesia. Thank you very much. I was wondering, what was the image of Ukraine that each one of you had when creating your campaigns? What did you want the world to see and understand? And I know that this is kind of a run-up question to that. What is the responsibility of people who tell stories today and within the art and profession of storytelling? If you could comment on that. I see perhaps Rick would like to go first. You're smiling.
So what is the image of Ukraine in my perception? So I would say that Ukraine is now like our universe were like 14 billion years ago, right after the Big Bang, when first chemical elements and first stars were forming. So in Ukraine this is right now. So you can feel the miracle of creation of everything, So, but personally for me, Ukraine is a young, beautiful, I would say lady, yeah. So, but very determined, very beautiful, and very, very strong. So this is what Ukraine is for me. we're a young democracy being dismantled by dictatorship, but we are fighting hard, and so this is what Ukraine is. And the second question,
What powers and responsibilities do storytellers have these days?
oh, I guess I've mentioned it earlier that it's all about storytelling. So the power is in your hands. You can just even if you have 100 followers in Instagram or whatever, just post something about what you think is important right now. So if you want to change something, post about it and feel the power of storytelling. This is the way it works.
Perfect, thank you. Alesia, what about you? What was the image of Ukraine that you were trying to put across?
Of a brave nation of brave people. This you can see in Keep Ukraine Moving campaign. As I told earlier, these are ordinary Ukrainians, like many others among us, and these people make their own decisions, and they are really targeted to do what they want and to support other Ukrainians, to protect their values, and that's what we put in this campaign. And we didn't even need to put something because everything was real, and all the words are real words of these people. So that's just who we are. So yeah, and talking about the responsibility of storytellers, I think about it a lot. Of course, because of the war, and I think like people have a natural reflex to turn from some sad and maybe hard stories, because we all want to live in a beautiful, kind world, because this is our, like, everyone wants to live in such kind of world. And sometimes it's hard to understand and think about the fact that maybe the world is not such a good and perfect place. And that's why many people tend to close the eyes on some stories. And I think that our power as storytellers, it can be very hard, because all across the globe there are so many sad things happening, and it's really important for us be brave enough to not to look away, even if it's hard, and to try our best to understand, to listen, and to tell the stories, because that's what we have this power to help people who need to be heard and seen, to tell their stories. That's, I think, our power.
Thank you, Alesia. Yaroslav, I would love to hear your perspective.
I would probably comment from the nation's branding perspective, because there is this term nation's branding, like how much country brands value and like what are their characteristics and so on, and what is the like typical approach to let's say invent a country brand is to design a visual identity, for example a logo, some kind of templates and so on, invent a slogan, for example, the key message, the narrative video, for example, and now we have a nation's brand. And usually, as we see, many countries follow the same trend. So many countries speak now about being innovative, about sustainability, about ecology, green energy, about being a perfect place for tourism, and so on. So the regular approach is that you just trying to understand your competitive advantages and put it into a communication frame. But the story of Ukraine, and that's about like what kind of image it is in my head or in our heads. The case of Ukraine is different because we never invented our brands. We are just taking something that are inside human souls, which is already there. We do not need to invent something. We do not need to come up with something. We just need to take what's already there. And that is why it's so, at the same time, it's both difficult and easy to communicate. Because when you are telling something that is true, that's the easiest way. But then about responsibility, both for me personally as a Ukrainian and like leading a digital team behind social media channels and websites with a multi-million regular audience, it's a huge responsibility to make sure that each story is true, verified. Besides, apart from that, I was speaking in the presentation about this nice, good stories of volunteers, of people that inspire. We work a lot with sensitive content, for example. We are speaking about terror, we are speaking about war crimes, we are speaking about death. That's also about storytelling, but that's another type of content where you always need to be cautious and attentive while working with sensitive information. So that's about responsibility. You need to check everything because you never know what kind of impact in the era of social media and AI, you never know what kind of impact it may have. But as a conclusion for the image that is in my head, it's something like a collage or a pattern, because I was speaking a lot about diversity, about different kinds of people that joined their efforts to win. So it's not a single thing or a single symbol or a single person. It's like a constellation in which there are many people, many ideas. And I personally believe that this diversity of Ukraine, that's no matter what you are going through, no matter who you are and what's your background, the only thing that defines is who you are right now, what you are doing, what's your motivation to fight, what's your inspiration. And that is why it's always turns into this constellation of dreams, constellation of efforts. That's how I imagine it.
Thank you, Yaroslav. Such beautiful perspective and ideas and thoughts. Danielle, I would love to hear a little bit about your thoughts on this, working with the image of Ukraine and perhaps a sense of responsibility that you might have felt at the time.
Yeah, there were many. I think for starters, my image wasn't going to be right. And having the perspective to know that I knew nothing, and that we needed to to partner with the people who did know and did understand and did have a perspective about the truth behind the Ukrainian people was paramount. And I think that's when you talk about the responsibility, we have a responsibility as big brands to leverage our platform to make sure that people are seeing and noticing these incredible stories. But it was also incredibly important to me that this story did not come across as an Uber story. This was about drivers. These were about Ukrainian people who happen to be Uber drivers. And there's so many brands that try and dip their toe into a conversation that they really don't have any right to play in, or really come at it from a very ethnocentric perspective that is not the truth. It is not the authentic, real story. And that's why it was incredibly important to me that how we made this was just as important as what we made. And using Oleg and the Banda team was going to be the best way that we could do that. And then, a lesson I know is like the copywriting, the fine line between not making it seem like Uber had nothing to do with it and was like, hey, look at these stories, good luck. But also that we weren't saying that our donations meant anything until there were people on the ground in the Ukraine who were willing to drive. So I think that balance and that perspective to ensure that the story came across as well intended as it was made was super important in the execution.
Thank you so much, Danielle. As our time comes to an end, I would just like to ask all of our speakers to perhaps share a few final words, any messages that they would like to share with our audience, and also perhaps your tips and insights for those who are interested in working with Ukrainian creatives and how they can better do that. Danielle, perhaps you would like to go first.
Sure. I mean, my my driving perspective is just a giant, massive thank you for continuing to stoke the embers of the spirit of the Ukrainian people and to show and use the power of creativity to all of the panel partners here. I think it's very, very heartwarming and inspiring as a creative person. And then I think lastly, it's a very practical comment. Sure, you might have to be a little bit more lenient in the timelines because, like everybody has said, it was sometimes hard to connect. It was sometimes hard to sync, but the perseverance will prevail, and understanding and knowing that the right thing to do in this situation is to leverage the power of creativity and the agencies in Ukraine, not to look away as we've all tried to explain, but also to know that the right thing to do is to offer our platform and our work.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Hope that your words will be inspiring to other Americans and global creators interested in reaching out and working with these unstoppable, incredibly adaptive, and motivated people. Rick, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yes, sure. I hate war and any kind of war, and I'm a totally anti-war and anti насилие. Sorry, насилие.
Violence.
Anti-violent person, but I'm asking you to don't let the war fatigue. You know what war fatigue is? Don't let war fatigue take over you. Just don't let it happen, because for Ukrainians, your attention right now is a lifeline. So we need your attention in any form. So you can work with us, you can tell stories about us, you can just speak about Ukrainians on your sitting with your relatives on your kitchen, I don't know, whatever, and just don't let this war fatigue happen in your space, because this is very important for us right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rick. Alesia.
My final words, first of all, thank you to everyone here now. And then I also wanted to add that, to my mind, one of the most important things for creativity and storytelling is empathy. And my final piece of advice to everyone is to develop it as any other skill. I think it's really important to emphasize with other people who are going through war, loss, fear, fight, changes, and help them. So this is maybe the most important thing you need to tell stories. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Alesia. And Yaroslav, let's wrap up with you.
I will also say huge thank you to the organizers team, and this was a fantastic discussion and some kind of I don't know, psychological session, like a therapy at the end of the day. It was really interesting and fruitful, and I also really happy and really glad that this is just another way to collaborate between the two great nations, Ukrainians and Americans. So we are good friends and partners and at different levels, both official and unofficial. And it's good that our partnership has a continuation in this way. And I join actually Rick's and Les's words about support really matters. So we Ukrainians, we every day we are waking up and going to sleep with the same thoughts that we want to win this war. We want the war to end, and we will put every effort to achieve it. So thank you for your dedicated support every day, and please continue doing what you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yaroslav, and thank you, Danielle, Rick, Alesia, all of our panelists tonight for such a fantastic and sincere conversation, on all of your incredibly inspiring and motivating work that you do. I hope this is just the beginning of collaborations with Ukrainians all over the world. And the further we go, the more appreciation everyone will have for the unique perspectives that Ukrainians bring and the unique adaptability that they also bring to their work. I thank you to our audience for joining us today, those in the webinar, for all of your great questions, and to everyone watching. You will be able to review this great talk. It will be available on America House social media pages, on our YouTube and our Facebook. And I encourage everyone that is watching to perhaps share your recommended Ukrainian creatives, agencies, freelancers, copywriters, creative directors in the chat. Ukrainian creatives can be found everywhere on all main platforms, on Behance, on different social media sites. And the more the world opens up to Ukraine, the more Ukraine opens up to the world. Please join our next talk on May 26th, when we will be exploring arts, fashion, creativity, and design, and why they matter in wartime. This is just the first of coming discussions, so I hope that all of you will tune in. And I wish everyone a safe evening. Stay safe, take care of yourself and of others if you are able. And we look forward to seeing you at the next America House event, part of the Creative Resilience in a Wartime discussion series. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.